The first time Dr. Harnax Ekkal heard the sound, he dropped the surgical cauterizer and crouched behind the diagnostics cart. His upper limbs trembled as he peeked over the edge, eyes wide, throat pulsing with alarm. The sound was low, rumbling, guttural, like something massive just outside the chamber was preparing to consume the ship from the inside out. By the stars, Harnax hissed, scanning the sterile veterinary bay of the Terran Interchange Vessel Asterion. It's here already. The Predator. I knew it. This planet is a death trap. Across the room, Harrison Vell, wearing his standard-issue navy blue maintenance suit and holding a very fluffy, very relaxed 12-pound cat, blinked. You mean Poptart? Harnax pointed a trembling digit at the creature, which was nestled in Harrison's arms and emitting a steady, vibrating growl. That noise, it's a threat display. Look at its mouth. It's smiling while growling. Harrison frowned and looked down at Poptart, who blinked slowly and rubbed her cheek against his chest. She's not growling. She's purring. Purring, Harnax repeated warily, as if testing a venomous term. That is not a safe sound. That's the sound of a digestive system preparing for feeding. What is it doing to your sternum? She's just vibing, document. It means she's happy. No creature makes a happy sound that resembles tectonic movement. Harrison carefully placed Poptart on the examination table. She stretched, arched her back, and flopped sideways, exposing her belly like a fluffy landmine. Harnax flinched. I'm not touching that, the alien said, taking a cautious step back. Its underbelly is clearly bait. I read the Terran wildlife logs. That's a trap designed to lure in prey. Harrison chuckled. Well, yeah, you don't actually pet the belly. That's a rookie mistake. Then why is it exposed? Because she's weird. I am a licensed interspecies veterinarian with 420 cycles of experience. Nothing should be this inconsistent. Yeah, cats are like that. Harnax's gaze flicked from Poptart to the medical scanner, which still displayed an abnormally fast pulse his own inside. Why is it here? She's got a limp. That's a predator. You brought an apex predator into my sterile operating bay because it was limping. She's my pet. Terrans keep predators as pets? No, we keep cats as pets. They just happen to be predators. Harnax looked at the cat again. Poptart yawned, revealing sharp fangs, then immediately rolled over and began licking her paw with complete indifference. I need a containment field. She's not gonna hurt you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. No, you don't. I've lived with her for 6 years. And yet you still have all your fingers? Barely, Harrison muttered. Unacceptable. Harrison approached the table and gently palpated Poptart's right foreleg. She flicked her ear in irritation but didn't resist. See that? She let me do that. Now it's your turn. I refuse. You're the vet. I specialize in quadriform grazers and low-gravity reptiles. I did not train for this. You work on a Terran Alliance ship. You're gonna see cats. No one told me that cats were sentient meat blenders with moods. Harrison sighed and stepped aside. Just scan the leg. I think she twisted it jumping off the hydroponics stack. Harnax reluctantly activated the limb scanner. A soft blue light washed over the cat's leg and the interface buzzed twice. Minor tissue strain. No fracture. Recommend rest and limited movement for 2 Terran days. Poptart sneezed. Harnax flinched again. What was that? A sneeze. It expelled fluid at me. She's just got some dust in her nose. Your planet is absurd. The door hissed open behind them. Commander Drell strode in, flanked by 2 ensigns. Dr. Harnax, why are you crouched behind the diagnostics cart? Harnax stood up, straightened his lab coat, and cleared his throat. I was avoiding an imminent predatory attack. Drell's eyes found Poptart, who was now kneading the examination table with her front paws, eyes half closed. You mean the cat? Yes. The cat. Not a predator, Doctor. Just a feline. You'll need to get used to them. I'd rather face a Garant tusk beast. Those have tusks the length of your arm. Yes. But they don't purr. 2 hours later, Harrison was back in his quarters, perched on the edge of his bunk with a bag of frozen peas pressed to his forearm. A red scratch ran from his elbow to his wrist. You tried to pet her belly, didn't you? Said Kaylin Morrow, the ship's linguistics officer, sipping coffee from a metallic cup as she sat cross-legged on the opposite bunk. I thought she was in a good mood. She's never in a good mood. Harrison grunted. Did the doc survive? Barely. I think we traumatized him. Kaylin leaned forward. You didn't tell him about the time Poptart dismantled the hydroponics sensors? He didn't need to know. You're gonna break that alien. No, I'm gonna teach him. Harnax, meanwhile, was in the medical lounge staring at a holographic projection of a cat's skeletal structure. He pointed at the spine. This is designed for ambush predation. It even has retractable claws. Dr. Vellin, a fellow Zarnet, peered over his shoulder. And yet it lives in your quarters? No. It lives in the human's quarters. I merely treated it. Did it bite you? No. Then you're lucky. The next day, Harnax was called back to inspect Poptart again. This time, she refused to eat. She's sulking, Harrison explained, pacing the room. Sick? No. Just mad. Because I moved her blanket. Harnax blinked. You moved. A piece of fabric. And now it refuses sustenance. Welcome to cat logic. Harnax stared at the cat. This is not medicine. This is witchcraft. He approached cautiously, a small dish of warmed protein paste in hand. Poptart sniffed the dish, blinked, and turned away. Unbelievable. Try putting it on the blanket. That's unsanitary. She won't eat otherwise. Grumbling, Harnax placed the dish on the folded blanket. Poptart sauntered over and began eating. Harnax folded his arms. There is no science to this. Nope. I need a sabbatical. The next cycle, the situation escalated. Poptart vanished. She was here an hour ago, Harrison said, tearing apart the storage bins. You lost the predator? She's not a predator, she's a cat. You keep saying that as if it excuses anything. They searched for 2 hours, combing the ventilation shafts and underfloor panels. Kaylin joined in, crawling on her stomach through maintenance corridors. Eventually, a soft purring led them to the waste reclamation unit. Poptart was curled up inside a warm diagnostic console, fast asleep. She went into a powered system, Harnax said, aghast. She could have been vaporized. She likes the heat. She lacks self-preservation. She's a cat. I'm beginning to understand that's not an explanation, it's a warning. After that, Harnax began studying feline behavior during his off hours. He watched old Earth documentaries, read research logs, and even observed Poptart through a discrete camera. He noticed how she'd bat at dangling wires, how she'd stare at nothing for hours, and how she'd appear in rooms no one saw her enter. He began to accept grudgingly that this creature operated on a logic alien even to him. Then came the medical emergency. During a routine systems inspection, a coolant pipe ruptured on Deck 6. Harrison was caught in the blast. He managed to seal the leak before losing consciousness. When he woke in the medbay, he had second-degree burns along his left arm, a mild concussion, and bruised ribs. Kaylin stood beside his bed, arms folded. You're lucky the pipe didn't hit your face. I wouldn't call this lucky, Harrison muttered, wincing as he tried to sit up. Stay down. You've got a fractured rib. They're running scans to confirm. Harnax entered moments later, medical pad in hand. For once, he didn't flinch when Poptart, who had followed Kaylin in, jumped onto the bed and curled beside Harrison's leg. She hasn't left the door since you got brought in, Kaylin said. Harnax studied the cat. Is this concern? Yup. Harnax turned to Harrison. You Terrans are strange. You risk your lives for machinery, and your predators mourn you. That's about right, Harrison said. Harnax adjusted the scanner. You'll need a week of restricted movement. I'll prescribe pain suppressants. Great. Poptart purred loudly. The alien froze for half a second. Then, slowly, he reached out and ran 2 fingers gently down her back. She didn't claw him. Harnax exhaled. Still sounds like a malfunctioning engine. But he smiled. Just a little. The cat had lodged herself in the crook of his knee. Harrison lay half reclined in the medbay's recovery suite, chest taped with a synthetic mesh that itched like hell, forehead visibly bruised, and a dull ache radiating from his ribs every time he so much as breathed too hard. Poptart, utterly unbothered by his injuries, had claimed a patch of blanket and was now grooming her tail with the slow, hypnotic determination of an animal that believed the universe answered to her schedule. "She hasn't moved in 4 hours," Harnax observed from the doorway, holding a nutrient infusion bag like it personally offended him. "Is she conserving energy in preparation for something? She's napping. That cannot be a full-time occupation. Tell her that." Harnax entered slowly, keeping a cautious distance from the bed's edge. He plugged the infusion line into the wall unit and double-checked the flow rate, then frowned at the cat again. "She watched me the entire time I recalibrated the scanner in Lab B," he said. "Without blinking, I thought she was asleep. When I turned around, she was gone. A minute later, she was behind me. Sounds like she likes you. That is not affection. That is surveillance. She does that with everyone." Harnax glanced at the monitor. "Your blood pressure is still low. I'm lying down, and you've refused the analgesic. It messes with my memory." "I'm not risking forgetting how to fix the cooling matrix. You're recovering from thermal trauma. You need rest." "I'm resting. I've got a cat on my leg. I'm not going anywhere." Poptart chirped. Harnax jumped. "What was that?" "She's acknowledging the conversation. That was not language. Neither is your throat clicking, but I've learned to live with it." Harnax narrowed his eyes. "Terrans are so casually cruel. Only when we like someone." "Charming." He returned to the console and began logging the day's readings. Harrison scratched idly behind Poptart's ear, and she leaned into it with the gravity of a small, furry son. "Has she shown any signs of stress since the incident?" Harnax asked without looking up. "Only when they tried to move me to a different bed." "You mean when the surgical bot transported you?" "She tried to bite it. That explains the damaged rotator arm. Guess she thought it was kidnapping me." Harnax paused. "You are bonded." "Yeah. I rescued her during a flood back home. She was half drowned, hissing like a demon. Took 6 hours to coax her out of a crawl space. She's been glued to me ever since." "That was before you joined the fleet?" 2 years before. She's been through worse than this." Harnax eyed the cat again. "And yet she remains. Because she chooses to. That's irrational. So are most of the best things in life." A soft tone chimed from the console. Harnax checked the screen. "Your scan's complete. No internal bleeds. You can be discharged by second cycle tomorrow." "Great. I'll go back to engineering and get yelled at for damaging fleet infrastructure with my face. That coolant pipe violated several safety regulations. The damage was not your fault. Try explaining that to Lieutenant Braska." "I did." He cried. Harrison blinked. "Wait, Braska cried?" Apparently coolant-related injuries remind him of an uncle who fell into a vat of pickled algae. It was a strange conversation. Everything about this ship is a strange conversation. Harnax unplugged the scanner and turned to leave. "Make sure you hydrate, and do not let the cat near the suture adhesive. It smells like fish oil." "She already tried to lick it." "Of course she did." He left without another word. By the time the lights dimmed for night cycle, Harrison had dozed off with one arm over his eyes and Poptart draped across his abdomen like a particularly judgmental scarf. The door hissed open again, and Kaylin slipped in carrying a mug of something that smelled like roasted herbs in despair. "You're awake?" she asked softly. "Not really. Brought you tea." "I can't taste anything. My face is numb." "Then it's the perfect time to try my tea." He reached out blindly, took the mug, and sipped. "This tastes like boiled moss. It helps with inflammation. I feel inflamed in spirit now." Kalen sank into the chair beside him. You're lucky your suit absorbed most of the blast. Yeah, the rest of it absorbed me. She glanced at Poptart. She's been unusually quiet. She's planning something. Kalen leaned in and lowered her voice. So is the commander. What now? There's a diplomatic dinner tomorrow. Some sort of Terran Zarnik cultural exchange. Do I have to go? You're the only human on the roster who speaks both standard and Zarnik dialects. Why is that my fault? You learned it to impress a girl, remember? Back on Mars Station. Ugh, that was a mistake. Well, now it's a diplomatic asset. I'm concussed. You're also the only one who knows how to tell the difference between a Zarnik compliment and a duel challenge. I'll probably collapse halfway through the soup. Then do it dramatically. They love that. He groaned and put the mug down. If I show up with a cat, will they count it as a peace offering? Only if she doesn't yawn at anyone. She always yawns at people. Then maybe keep her in a carrier. She'll escape. Kalen raised a brow. Still convinced she's not a higher life form? I'm not ruling it out. Good. Because I signed you up as a cultural liaison. You what? Too late to back out now. The commander already had the uniforms pressed. The what? Kalen stood. Sleep well, Ambassador. He stared after her, then looked down at his belly. Poptart blinked slowly, unimpressed. You're not even going to help, are you? She sneezed and continued cleaning her paw. By early second cycle, Harrison was back on his feet, stiff but mobile. The bruising hadn't faded, but the pain was manageable. Harnax cleared him with a reluctant nod and a warning not to lift anything heavier than his own dignity. Poptart was waiting outside the medbay when he emerged, tail flicking like a metronome. You followed me here? She meowed once. Fine, but no lunging at anyone tonight. It's a diplomatic function. She meowed again, louder. He sighed. The event was held in the observation dome, with tables arranged along the curved wall of transparent alloy that looked out over the stars. Ambient lighting was dimmed to match Zarnik preference, casting a bluish hue over everything. The smell of steamed root vegetables and something vaguely citrusy filled the air. Harrison arrived in his pressed uniform, stiff collar digging into his neck, cat carrier slung over one shoulder. Poptart growled softly until he opened the door. She leapt onto his shoulder and perched there like a pirate's familiar. Drell spotted him first. You brought the feline. She refused to stay behind. Drell tilted his head. Will it interfere? Only if someone tries to confiscate the desserts. The first Zarna delegate approached, swathed in ceremonial robes that shimmered with embedded bioluminescent threads. His head crest tilted in greeting. A Terran with a predator companion, the delegate said. Fascinating. She's mostly decorative. The delegate extended a hand. I am Venner of the Eastern Spires. May I? You can try. Venner reached out. Poptart sniffed his fingers, then turned away with visible disdain. She accepts your presence, Harrison said diplomatically. Venner beamed. Over the next hour, Harrison translated idioms, intercepted potential insults, and prevented 3 minor diplomatic gaffes, including an incident involving a misunderstood toast and a bowl of fermented algae pearls. Poptart remained on his shoulder the entire time, occasionally swatting at floating translation drones and once hissing at a tray of synthetic shrimp. By the end of the evening, several Zarnik guests had taken turns offering her tributes: dried fish bits, small flashing toys, and at one point, a woven bracelet that she batted to the floor immediately. She has discerning taste, Venner said, amused. She has no taste, Harrison replied. She tried to eat a screw this morning. A ripple of laughter passed through the gathered aliens. As the delegation departed, Venner paused beside him. You Terrans are full of contradictions. You tame danger, wear chaos on your shoulder, and call it affection. She's not tamed, Harrison said, glancing at Poptart. She just lets me live. Venner smiled. Then may she never change. When Harrison finally returned to his quarters, exhausted, Poptart leapt down, made a single circuit of the room, and curled up in his laundry pile. He sat on the bed, pulled off his boots, and lay back with a groan. From the pile, a low hum began. Not a warning. Not a threat. Just a purr. And for once, Harnax wasn't there to panic about it. The morning after the diplomatic dinner, Harnax sat at his desk in the medbay's side office, staring at a data slate he wasn't reading. He'd already reviewed the bioscans of every crew member assigned to the Asterion's rotating shift, refilled the inventory of dermal patches, and run a complete recalibration on the auto-suture unit. His hands were folded, one thumb tapping rhythmically against the back of the other. The feline had not attacked anyone. No tray was overturned. No diplomatic limb severed. No ambassador eaten. Not even a toppled chair. He tapped his thumb harder. "You're early," said Dr. Vell, entering with a steaming cup of whatever the Zarnet brewed that smelled like fermented bark. She sat across from him and placed a protein roll on the shared desk. "That's for you." Harnax pushed it aside. "I've lost my appetite." "I heard the cat behaved." She was perched on the human's shoulder like a crown. "That's not unheard of. Terrans treat them like royalty." "No. Royalty is ceremonial. This was command." Vell took a bite of her roll. "I suppose that's accurate." Commander Drell said the delegates were quite taken with her. "I was informed they offered her gifts. A glowing orb and a small fish effigy. Apparently it was a gesture of interspecies respect." She batted the fish effigy off the table. "Still better received than Lieutenant Braska's toast." Harnax leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "I have treated creatures with 12 stomachs and venom sacs the size of my head. None of them inspired this level of irrational loyalty. She didn't injure anyone. She didn't have to. She just existed. And now they're all enchanted." Vell gestured toward the corridor. "If it helps, she's been poking around the medbay door since second cycle started." Harnax didn't move. "She left a sock." He blinked. "A what?" "A sock. One of the humans. Dropped it outside and sat on it for nearly an hour." "That's not a ritual offering, is it?" "Possibly. Or she just enjoys disrupting routines." He stood abruptly. "I'll deal with it." The sock was indeed there when he exited the office. A single gray fabric cylinder with a tear near the toe seam, half flattened under the weight of a lounging feline. She looked up at him with mild interest as he approached, tail twitching against the bulkhead. "This is not your territory," he said. She yawned. "You are loitering." She blinked. "I am not your servant." She rolled onto her back and stretched, revealing her underside like a trapdoor opening. "I will not fall for that." She stayed, unmoving, paws curled toward the ceiling like a creature too comfortable to care. He exhaled through his nostrils and crouched, carefully avoiding the exposed belly. He picked up the sock and held it between two gloved fingers. "This is unsanitary." She sniffed it, then turned her head away. "You are not even interested in your own offering." She meowed without looking at him. He sighed and stood. "Fine. You may observe. But if you interfere with any procedures, I will file a formal report." She followed him in any way. The first patient of the day was a Yllari crew member with a stubborn rash along the dorsal ridge. Harnax applied a topical gel and recorded the inflammation levels. Poptart sat silently on the counter, tail wrapped around her paws, watching intently. The Yllari glanced at her nervously. "Is that safe?" "No," Harnax said. "But apparently it's tolerated." Poptart's ears flicked. She remained still. The second patient was a human with a twisted ankle from a gravity misalignment in the gymnasium. As Harnax applied a compression wrap, he noticed the feline hop down and settle near the human's boot. "Does she usually do that?" he asked. "She likes shoes," the human replied. "She cannot wear them. She doesn't want to. She just sits near them. This species is incomprehensible." By mid-shift, Poptart had relocated to the top of a supply cabinet where she napped amid sterile gauze packs and a rolled-up emergency blanket. Harnax considered removing her, but she wasn't obstructing anything. Yet, He resumed his documentation, dictating into the terminal. Subject 3 presented with minor dermal abrasion from friction with synthetic fibers. No signs of infection. Prescribed Poptart chirped. He stopped. That was not directed at you. She chirped again. He turned and saw her staring at the wall behind him. He followed her gaze, then frowned. The diagnostic panel on the wall was flickering faintly. Just one light at the edge of the interface fluttering like a weak pulse. He approached, opened the casing, and found a warped relay. Internal temperature had been building silently along the panel's edge, too slow for the system to flag yet. If it hadn't been caught, it could have overheated by the next shift. He replaced the relay, sealed the panel, and turned. Poptart had gone back to sleep. He stared at her for a full minute. I am not thanking you. She didn't stir. That evening, Harrison returned to light duty and was assigned to recalibrate the starboard water filtration manifold. He stopped by the med bay on his way and found Harnax standing over the central console reviewing scan data. Hey, you seen a gray sock? Harrison asked. Harnax didn't look up. It was delivered. Oh, thought she lost it. She placed it deliberately. Yeah, that's her thing. Harnax gestured toward the cabinet. She's there. Poptart was asleep again, one paw dangling off the edge, tail twitching every so often. She's been here all day? Harrison asked. She has not interfered. Wow, that's a first. Harnax finally looked at him. She may possess some rudimentary diagnostic awareness. You saying she helped with something? I am saying her gaze led me to a malfunctioning relay. She may have sensed a heat pattern. She does that sometimes. Back home, she used to sleep on the floor vent until it shorted. Then she stopped using it 2 days before it blew. This is not instinct. It's repeatable behavior. She's stubborn like that. I am considering a test. Harrison raised an eyebrow. You're going to run a clinical trial on a cat? I'm going to place her near equipment I suspect is underperforming. If she reacts, I'll document it. You're trying to turn her into a diagnostic tool? Not intentionally. I merely wish to observe. Harrison grinned. Better hope she cooperates. I'm aware that's unlikely. He turned back to the data console. Harrison lingered a moment longer, then stepped toward the cabinet. Thanks for watching her. I did not volunteer. Still, appreciate it. Harnax didn't reply, but his shoulders settled slightly. Later, after lights dimmed to ship's night cycle, he walked the med bay one last time, checking locks and power levels. Poptart remained on the cabinet, now curled into a tighter ball, nose tucked under her tail. He paused beside her. I suppose, he said quietly, you may return tomorrow. She didn't respond. He left the door unlatched. Just slightly.